There are often times when you need to count or total values, but only if certain criteria are met. You can do this using conditional versions of the familiar functions count, sum, and average. This is a long list of imaginary student data. There are 500 rows, so any information I want from it needs to be gathered using formulae. Let's see how I can answer some straightforward questions. Now, I wouldn't usually put the results on the same sheet as the source data, but in this case I will, so you can see what's happening. First, how many first-year students are there? Now, to count how many students altogether, I just use count. So to count how many first years, I can use COUNTIF. Count them if they're a first year. I'm putting the function here. COUNTIF needs to know two things: where to count, the range of cells, and in this case the year is in column D, so I enter the whole column, and what values to count. In this case we're looking for a 1, so I could enter a 1. However, I get a more flexible formula if I reference the 1 in another cell, in this case in H4. That means if I change H4 to a different year, I get a count of that year instead. In fact, I could add years 2 and 3 below 1 and copy the formula down, showing the results for all 3 years at the same time. Next question. What's the average result for first years? Whereas the COUNTIF only had to look in one column, to work out an average with AVERAGEIF, we'll need to look in column D to see if they are first year, but then calculate the average from corresponding values in column F. This means we need 3 parts to the function. So here we go. First we enter the range to find the criterion, the year, which is column D. Next the criterion itself. Referencing cell H10 is the best way, though you could just enter 1. And finally the column from which to calculate the averages, which is column F. And as before, I could find the average for the other years by copying the formula. One point worth noting: if the same range is used for both the criteria and average, you skip the third parameter. You might do this if, for example, you wanted the average of everyone who has scored less than 50. There's an example of that in cell I15. It won't come as a surprise that you can use the function SUMIF in exactly the same way to total values that meet certain criteria. One great thing about these functions is that you can count or find totals and averages without making any changes to the rows and columns that contain the values. And once you're feeling confident with these, you might want to explore the multi-criteria versions, COUNTIFs, SUMIFs, and AVERAGEIFs.